Hello, 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 and welcome everybody. It's time for another episode of Battle Chads where we're talking about a winning RCQ list with good old Dan. Dan, say hello to everybody.
Hello everybody, how are you doing?
And we're here with myself and Josh as usual. Josh?
Hello everyone.
We're celebrating Dan's win over the recent RCQ at Harlequins Preston. He managed to just absolutely ravage the competition with one of the fastest decks in the format, if not the fastest, I think. Mono Red Prowess. We're going to have Dan here take us through the deck, explain exactly how he reached his list, why exactly he made the choices he made, and just take us through the mind of a Mono Red player, essentially.
Before he does that though, can we contextualize this tournament, because this tournament wasn't just like the thing with RCQs now we found is that you can get RCQs where you get 8 players and they run a top 8 and it's like an F&M. This was a genuine, it was 54 people started.
52.
Yeah.
I think it finished 52, but I think it was 54 starting because I think 2 dropped really early on. I think.
Yeah, exactly. It was the biggest RCQ in the entire RCQ time that exists in the UK. I think, at least in this part.
And the people who played there were there's some good players who you're against. So yeah, just to contextualize that win, it was a very good win.
Yeah, it was proper grinder RCQ, tons of experienced and very ready to win players. Dan definitely made miracle work with Mono Red here. It's amazing. It's surprising how fast the deck has gotten compared to where it was before the printing of Slickshot Show-Off and the new cards from Outlaws of Thunder Junction.
Yeah, it's great. Slickshot Show-Off, I've said to my friends that I test with, Dom, Matt, Chris, and Powell, Slickshot Show-Off is like that middle ground that Mono Red was missing to just be truly explosive. In the past, it's run like Vishnu Pyromancer, more specifically in the Wizards build. That's 2 mana when ETBs, deals 2 damage, and it's a wizard as well. But Slickshot Show-Off is a wizard. It's 2 mana. It's got big prowess. Gets +2/+0 when you cast a non-creature spell. And more importantly, it's got plot. Plot, as you can see on the screen now, it's 2 mana. Exile the card from your hand, and you can cast a sorcery later on without paying its mana cost. So it sets up some really, really explosive turns. So say you can go turn 1 drop, whether it's Swift Spear, Soul Scar, Lava Runner. Turn 2, plot Slickshot, which does seem bad at the time, but then on your turn 3, then you've got a wizard on the field, so you've got access to Wizard's Lightning, which then opens up a Spectacle Skewer the critics, opens up Light Up Stage as well, if you just need a bit more gas for the next turns. So that is sort of the breaker for this deck, I feel. And that's why it's performed so well. I've seen loads of lists on Twitter that have done really well at other RCQs. They've trophied on leagues online. It's just really, really good. It's quite fast.
This deck is like this card is like the essence of plot, right? Because the whole thing of a plot is that you're thinking 2-3 turns ahead of where you are when you plot that card.
Yeah.
And it's just I feel it's a really skill intensive mechanic that they've introduced to the game, and I really enjoy the fact that it's highlighted in and exemplified very well and what it's meant to do in this deck.
Oh yeah. No, it's great. Like I said, it just sets up for whether it's an explosive turn next turn or whether it's a few turns later when you're just missing that last spell, 2 spells. It's great, and it's just bridged the deck together very, very nicely. If you run this deck with a bunch of burn spells, which as you can see I have, I've got 4 Plague Fires, 4 Wizard's Lightnings, which is just a lightning bolt 9 times out of 10. And 3 Skewer the Critics, which Luis and Josh are gonna absolutely roast me for putting not a Renzazol, sorry, a Witchstalker Frenzy in the main board. Yeah, it's good. You could just win out of nowhere, and there's loads of times where you just top deck a Skewer or a Wizard's Lightning and win the game.
It's definitely just an explosive deck, right? I think it is single-handedly the quickest deck in Pioneer right now. It can definitely beat you on turn 3. It's about as quick as Modern Burn. This is what I would say it's the most akin to for all our experienced players that are listening. Modern Burn usually defeats you turn 3, turn 4. This does a very similar thing if you don't interact with it properly. It's a very difficult deck to beat if you don't have the right tools, and it can catch you with your pants down. Honestly, I think I heard many stories from many players that they weren't expecting the speed of it. They weren't expecting to just get absolutely, whomped by just some honestly very unassuming creatures like Gitu Lava Runner. Not exactly the staple of creature you think of, but sometimes it just gets you. It's a wizard. It activates what you need in the deck. It's often a 2/2 with haste. If it's a fantastic card. It's a goblin guide without the downside.
That's great. I love it. It's just creme de la crop. It's honestly, it's just such a low to the ground deck. You swinging in with loads of damage, casting better spells, casting your light up stages for a bit of extra value. Like I said, the 75 isn't exactly perfect. Obviously, the Witchstalker Frenzy, the one of Ren's Resolve, questionable about going down to 19 lands rather than 20 lands. Just one copy of Sokenzan, 2 Den of the Bugbears as well. Why is it not 3? Why is it not 4? Why is it just 2? Den's amazing if you draw it on turn 1 or 2. Anytime after that, you just don't want to draw it whatsoever. And it's even worse if you do bring it up off of a light up stage. Sokenzan, with it being legendary, it's terrible in multiples. Even when I did draw it, then it was just going down as a basic mountain with flavor text. I was never doing it for the channel ability. But when you do use a channel ability, then you've got some blockers, you've got some extra attackers. It does help you get in the extra ways.
Fair enough. It's definitely some of the building restrictions or building ideas with this deck. I don't know if the best 75 has been figured out. Looking at the list online, it looks like people are testing and trying and finagling a few things here and there. I see some people dropping the Skewer the Critics altogether to run Lightning Strike as a 2 mana bolt effect, but it's always 2 mana instead of being sometimes 3, sometimes 1, which has some merit. But I do enjoy the fact that you're able to consistently get damage across, which allows Slickshot or your prowess creatures to just be that much more effective, right? There's a huge difference in 1 versus 2 mana. In my opinion, it is the single biggest difference of any mana cost, bar 0 cost spells, but those don't really exist in Pioneer.
No.
That this is a very important thing to look at, and that's why I prefer your list with Skewer the Critics over something like Lightning Strike. And I think it's something for anyone who's looking to pick up this deck and play Mono Red to really consider what speed and what exactly is your deck trying to accomplish. If you're really just trying to finish the game in the first, let's say, 5 turns, I think Skewer is where you want to be. If you expect yourself to go a little longer and perhaps need to have that consistency in the mid game and late game, maybe Lightning Strike works a little better because you might use it for removal more often instead of just going face, which are some considerations.
The speed of this deck is interesting because you said before it usually can get you by turn 3 or get to the state where you are essentially dead by turn 3. Now Pioneer is the combo decks in Pioneer, turn 3 is the sweet spot, right?
Yeah.
So you look at combo decks like Amalia, you look at combo decks like Lotus Field. It's all turn 3 is the sweet spot. So if you can get into a position where you're winning before they go off, which this deck can have, it's sort of the answers to the Pioneer problem, because I've said lots of times that the problem I have with Pioneer is that sometimes the answers don't match up to the questions. This deck doesn't even answer the questions. It doesn't even ask the questions. It just gets you dead before the questions are being asked.
Yeah, definitely does.
Go on. No, you go first.
It's even got the ability to, like some lists I've seen online where they're going more of a mid-range pattern with Chandra Dress to kill. Obviously it's great with light up stages, great with Skewer. You play that on 3, tick up, you get a red mana and it deals 1 damage to your opponent, so it turns on your spectacles. I believe that those are the decks that are more leaning towards Lightning Strikes and Searing Bloods. But I feel like in Pioneer at the minute, especially when you've got Vein Rippers going left, right, and center, you do just want to kill someone as quickly as you possibly can do.
What decks don't you want to see with this deck?
You don't want to see the Vein Ripper decks. You don't want to see like the vampires. You don't want to see. Well, this is me personally because I just don't like playing against control. You don't want to see control shells. You don't want to see Amalia. You definitely don't want to see angels. Just anything that traditional mono red decks have struggled against in the past, whether it be like some of the really, really grinding matchups, like you've got Jund in Modern, for example. That was always a bad matchup for Burn. but then it's got obviously a lot of really, really good matchups as well. But a lot of them are just 50-50.
Fair enough. That makes sense. Anything that can gain some life, put some blockers in front of you, it's a bit hard to get over the top. Because I found with this list, it's very strong against things like mono black. Mono black, you'd think, wait, that has a lot of removal. It's efficient in trying to destroy and disrupt creatures. Yeah, sure, but then it gets absolutely domed over the top with your burn spells. You set out 1 or 2 creatures early, you get a few hits of damage, they might fatal push one, or maybe have to bitter triumph the other, and they lose a card. Then you just go 3 to the face, 3 to the face, 3 to the face, and they eventually just get wrecked. They can't deal with it. It's too quick for what they're trying to do because they play a lot of tap lands. The Sunken Citadel, or they play awkward cards like Veil of Ruin, which you completely blank in your deck, basically. And this is what lets you get ahead of these slower, non-counterspell style control decks. And I think it's a decent meta call for that reason. While your Phoenix and Rakdos Vampire matchups can be a little questionable because of the amount of removal and efficiency they have, Mono Black is what people are trying to go to defeat Phoenix and Rakdos Vampires. And what beats Mono Black? Mono Red. So it's a great meta call for that.
Can we talk about your sideboard? Because there's some interesting sideboard cards that you picked. So some that you would normally see, but I want to know because I was really interested by Karizev's expertise. Can you just go through the sideboard? Tell us when it's good, why you've chose that sideboard option, and also I'm not really bothered about how you sideboard because we're going to attach the sideboard guide to this part. But just why you chose those cards.
So Case is a card that I seen online and I thought it was more cute rather than good. And then when I played it in testing, it is just a really, really good card. Saying the games that can go longer, like your Vampires Phoenix, where you just draw 2 cards at the beginning of your upkeep. Those are the games where you tend to sort of just blow your load very early on in the game. And there's a time where you just hellbent, you draw 2 cards every single turn, it's good. So there's always that chance of drawing the extra burn spells. Even like Ramanat Ruins, if the games are going longer, they're really, really good ways of closing them out. So Case is really good, I do like it. I'm not sure about going up to 2 copies or not on it. It can just be really, really clunky in those matchups when you've got both of them in your opening hand, but you're also trying to kill them as quick as you can. End of Festivities is for Convoke. It can come in against the Ensoul decks, the blue red Ensoul decks. It just kills all of the X ones. But then it also can come in against Phoenix. I was saying to Luis before, Phoenix players tend to bring in Young Pyromancer after game 1, so it just kills Young Pyromancer and all the tokens that I've spewed out. And then again also triggers your Spectacle for Light Upstage and Skewer. Expertise is again for the Vampires matchup, so you could just steal like a Vein Ripper or an Archfiend of the Dross and just kill them that way, and then you can just put down your worst 2 or your best 2 drop that's in your hand at that point. But it's sort of more grindy matchups. It's also fun to steal a Darksteel Citadel that's got scissors on it and just swing it with that. Frostodon is a good card for against the Amalia combo decks. Obviously, they need to gain life for their combo to work, so you've got a lot of disruption for that. 4 is too much though. I found that when I've sided them in during testing, I've just got 2 copies in my hand randomly, and I'm like, right, I want to cast one, but I don't want to cast all 4 of them at the same time. Red Cap Melee again is for blue, red, and soul. It kills the inties. It's also really good in the mirror. It kills every single creature in this deck, even after multiple prowess triggers. Render Volley. This comes in your Phoenix matchups. Do some other matchups.
Greasefang?
Amalia combo, Greasefang it comes in against. Sorry, Josh.
Spirits as well.
It's really good card. Spirits, yeah. I've not seen Spirits in ages though. I'm not worried about Spirits.
I think it's hated out the meta a little bit as well.
Yeah, a little bit.
Phoenix plays on it, so it's a bit hard for the Spirits players.
And Witchstalker Frenzy again. That's just and more of those in the sideboard for against the Vampires matchups.
So it's great 1 mana that destroys Shieldred kind of effect.
Yeah. Shieldred, doesn't it? Yeah.
It comes in against the 8-rag decks as well, just as a win more, if you will.
Have you got any like little tips on like little sweet little plays that you've done with this deck? Because, for example, I don't know, play with fire in your upkeep, or that leads to something else. I don't know.
I did cast a Play with Fire in my upkeep. there was a bit of a numbo with Monstrous Rage as well. So I carry Zev'd someone's creature, and then Monstrous Rage their creature with the carry Zev trigger because it's the only card in my hand. I was like, right, why have I done that? And they just got the creature back at the end of the turn, and it still had the monster token on it. So that was a bit of a punt. That was on Arena yesterday. I was in a Discord call with one of my friends, and he was just laughing at me. He was like, "Why have you done that?" Play with Fire in the upkeep's great. You can just scry the worst card in your deck to the bottom, and hopefully you just draw some gas. Kamano is always fun with, say, like a light up stage on turn 1. If you, it can be a deciding factor if your hands sort of approaching being okay to being very bad. If you've got a Kamano or light up stage and maybe just another 1-drop or just a bunch of lands, then it can bridge that gap to just drawing 2 extra cards just out of nowhere. And again, with Skewer the Critics.
Fair enough. And I have a few questions. You alluded to it a little earlier that we're gonna roast you for some of the deck building choices, right? So 3 Skewer the Critic and the Witchstalker's Frenzy in the main. Now, I've played tested the deck. I had decent results with it. The deck is very strong, it's very powerful. It definitely does its thing very well. There's been more than one situation where I find this in my hand when my opponent is on 3 life, and I am very sad that it's in my hand and it doesn't do anything. What made you decide to bring in the 1 Witchstalker's Frenzy over the 4th Skewer, or maybe something like a Wild Slash instead?
So I was expecting a lot of like Waste Not decks and a fair few Vampire decks as well. So Frenzy's better than Skewer in those 2 matchups because it kills Shieldred, it kills Vein Ripper, and it kills the, again, 3 mana 2/4 Death Touch Vampire that either gets you a body or draws you a card. So it kills that, whereas Skewer doesn't kill those. That's the one, Preacher of Schism. So that's where I just trimmed the 1 Skewer and just put in the Frenzy as sort of a replacement. But as Louis said, there are matchups where you would just rather have that 3 damage rather than killing a creature. But those decks are really good at deploying those threats with backup removal spell, so like a Fatal Push or a Shieldred's Edict. So you just walk yourself into a trap if you don't have that Witchstalker's Frenzy against them. And Skewer the Critics, I feel like it is just, it's not amazing in multiples. So if you've got land, 1-drop, 2-drop, Skewer, random card, then I feel like Skewer's just the worst card in that situation. But there are times where, say, you just go 1-drop, Kamano, Skewer, like before combat, and then get him for 3 points of damage. So it is good in that aspect. So I'm constantly toying with the deck whether the 4th Skewer is just better than the Frenzy, or maybe you just cut the Ren's Resolve for that 4th Skewer. But Ren's Resolve itself is a great draw spell later on in the games, and that's why there's only the 1, because it's not great in the early games anyway.
I think just on this list, I would drop shave Frostodon and have the 3rd Frenzy in the sideboard.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that makes sense, because it's one of those things, right? The Ren's Resolve is great in the mid game. It's a card you would love to have when you're teetering out on cards and you just need to refuel. And you don't find a lot at the stage, but sometimes you find the Ren's Resolve and it's passable. It works well. How have you found doing that instead of playing like the 20th land? Because we mentioned that normally it is a 20 land deck. You decided to go 19 and play the 5th version of a light up effect. How has that felt? Does that feel okay? Do you think it might be too land light? Is it a bit too awkward? Does it just run smoothly, fair enough, and it's not that big of an issue overall?
Yeah, like the latter, it does just run very smoothly. Like a lot of your cards are costing, like in an ideal situation, the highest costing card is Slickshot Show-Off at 2 mana. Everything else is just 1 mana. So like Wizard's Lightning, that's just a lightning bolt. Skewer again can just be a light up. It can just be a lightning bolt. Light up stage, just 1 mana, draw 2. So a lot of the deck is essentially just draw 1 mana. So that's where I did just cut out the 13th basic mountain or the 3rd den of the Bugbear for that 1 Ren's Resolve, just give you that a bit more of an edge in the later game.
Fair enough.
And it played off a 1 RCQ.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want to do with your decks, right? You wanna win. So if you had to change the deck right now, let's say you're going to an RCQ tomorrow, and you're ready to go, what changes would you make right now to the list in preparation for that RCQ?
So I've seen a list online. It's very similar to this, but it cuts the Ren's Resolve and it cuts Witchstalker Frenzy. It cuts some other cards as well to make room for 2 copies of Attackers Command. And then it runs 4 copies of Pick Your Poison and Sideboard. And then obviously you've got like Crag Crown Pathways, you've got your Stomping Grounds, your Red Green Jewels, just to play Attackers Command. I was very tempted to play the Red Green version. But I just didn't have the Stomping Ground, so I couldn't.
Blossoming Defense is very good for that deck as well. Because
Blossom Defense is great, yeah.
The thing what struggles, or what Mono Red particularly struggles with, is the fact that you can go all in on a creature and then you get fatal pushed.
Yeah.
For example. So if you've got that protection behind you, that it plays, I think that a pod that's coming out, we talk about this. It almost plays a bit like Infect in that regard.
Yeah.
Where this is just, I am gonna throw as much damage at you until you are dead, or I cannot, or I'm out of gas.
Yeah.
It's very, very glass cannon in the way that it works and what it's trying to do.
I'd be interested in what the matchup is like for these two, like, because I suspect that even though they are in the same kin as aggro decks, I actually reckon that the matchups with the strengths and weaknesses within the meta will be much different.
Yeah. I played the mirror a few times. Against the red green deck, myself being on the mono red. I found the mono red to usually take it, just because it is a little more streamlined in what it's trying to do. Whereas not to take anything away from the Gruul deck, it is very strong, it is very powerful, and it's a lot more resilient to some of the things you may see in the meta. In the aggro show-off, having the more streamlined deck does tend to just let you win. It doesn't matter if their creatures may get a little bigger than yours because of Blossoming Defense or this, because you just have so much more burn to finish them off, whereas the green deck has to sacrifice a little bit of it to make space for the Blossom Defenses or other protection spells.
Yeah.
Or even Questing Druid that a lot of people play. I know Dan is not a big fan of Questing Druid currently.
Dice the Bowmasters don't like it.
Thankfully, no Bowmasters in Pioneer, but it's an interesting choice that a lot of the aggro players are going to have to make. Something to consider in maybe the local meta of your RCQs is, are you expecting for people to have a ton of interactive decks with what you're doing, or is it a lot more of ships sailing in the night kind of style? This deck is definitely better in that, the ships sailing in the night analogy, whereas the Gruul deck is much better suited against decks that have a lot of interaction for you. So definitely something to take into account, see what's going on. Obviously, RCQs, they're a little easier to plan for than something like an RC where everyone's playing everything. So in this upcoming meta, in your current season of RCQs, consider these kind of thoughts when you're deciding your deck choice. If you feel that an aggro deck is what you want to be in, and it's good luck out there with all the aggroing. It's very fun to play Slickshot Show-Off. He is definitely.
Are you running this list back for the RC?
Not this exact 75.
But same
premise, yeah.
Yeah,
it's more like the Green Mono Red. It's my bread and butter. Like Josh, you've known me for a few years now. Like I used to play Mono Red in Standard. Burn was my first modern deck because it was so cheap at the time, and it was just a me deck. I don't like thinking a lot when I'm playing Magic. I just like showing up, playing a game for 10 minutes, 2-0, and then just go chilling and solo against
which, a little birdie told me that on the way to this RCQ, there may have been a little bit of what we like to call
a gambling problem, should we say?
Yeah, just a little bit. A gambling issue, a car ride deck choice, deck building kind of thing. That you decided on the car ride with a flip of a coin?
Yep, that's right. So it was between this 75 or Red White Heroic, which was Red White Heroic with Slickshot. From what I've heard and seen on like Discord and Twitter, it's just bonkers. Like you just randomly just kill someone like this does on turn 3, but it does have obviously the protection with God's Willing, Lauren's Escape as well. So it was just between those two, and I went, what should I play? What should I play? And Dom, the person who was taking us there, he said, oh, flip a coin. And I was like, okay, sound. Heads. It landed on heads, and it was mono red. And he went, oh, you're going to have to keep that coin now. It's your lucky coin. And I spent it on a bottle of water at the RCQ. Before the final as well.
You heard it here.
Brilliant.
Dan bribed the officials to let him win the RCQ.
I did, yeah, that's it.
Fair enough. Well, I hope everyone has gotten a lot of information out of this this little deck tech for Mono Red. We will be posting the sideboard guide and the deck list in the description, so take a look there if you are looking to potentially play this list and shave off the Witch Stalker's Frenzy from the main list. Thanks everyone again for joining us on this episode of Battle Chads. I hope that we have a lot more of these coming up. It's very fun to do. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe below, and share it with all your, let's say, less than ideal friends. The blue-white players. This is what they don't like to see. Love crushing them. Cough, Christian, cough. But yeah, thanks everybody. Take care and have a good one.
Thanks, guys. Bye bye.